Criticisms of religion?
You said it was delusional?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think it is wildly illogical to me from my perspective. I don't understand personally why a God that seems to glorify suffering to earn peace and eternal life, what's deserving of worship?
Yeah,
What's
but how do you?
deserving of.
But this is a problem. Is like you use religious terms in order to criticize religion. Like when you say words like suffering, how do you account for suffering? Suffering just means shit that you don't like. That's it. That's all suffering means.
Well, I can narrow it down a little bit. I mean, if I.
You're going to narrow. You will, but you're just going to narrow it down to subjective experiences I don't like or don't prefer.
I think
And if that's not what it narrows down to, I'm going to be stunned. But I'm going to let you narrow it down. So what is suffering?
I would say the suffering I was more referring to would be suffering that I believe is more unjust, not just because someone made a bad decision or messed up. I'm more referring to children and cancer and horrific things like that. The most common thing that I've ever been told is everything happens for a reason, and if this terrible thing happens to this young child, leukemia, things like that, that it was all God's will.
Oh.
And I personally don't understand that whatsoever, because what has such a young child done to deserve any kind of
That's
test
really
from
strange
God?
that you were raised Catholic
Yes.
and they told you it's in God's will
Yes.
that people get cancer.
It's all part of God's plan.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, the problem is, again, so all of the criticisms that you would come up with for religion, right? You have to account for all of them. So when you say words like just, it's loaded. Like, what is justice? Well, I can give you two forms of justice. There's a Christian form of justice you're probably more used to, like empathy. Oh, you came in and you stole a bunch of shit from my house. Is it then just for me to go and steal a bunch of shit from your house?
No.
No. That's really weird, though, because I can give you a completely alternative view of justice that seems like it's totally within the confines of reason. If you steal from my house for me to be able to steal from yours, that seems completely within the line of reason, seems totally logical to me. There's nothing illogical about it. There's no violations of the laws of logic, right? It's well within reason. What's the problem? The problem is you just don't prefer that kind of justice, right?
Sure. I'm also not 100% clear on some of the differences between Catholic and Christian teachings. I can say.
Well, Catholics are Christians, I would say.
I've been told by a few people that there's like some different teachings or how they're interpreted.
Yeah.
Personally. So I'm totally.
People will not consider them to be Christians. Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Non-denom. So
if there's.
I would just largely chop it up to three. There'd be. I chop it up this way, okay? Most Orthodox would just say everything that's not Orthodox is Protestant. But I just chop it up to there is Protestantism. These are all of the branches of Christianity which came from Martin Luther after the schism. And then there's Catholicism, which came from Orthodoxy after the schism. And then there's Orthodoxy, the original Church of Christ. Mm. So that's how I would view it, right?
So how do you... I've read most of the Old Testament. I haven't finished it, some of the new one. But when it comes to science and religion, I know that's always like such an annoying topic. But how do you justify the Bible through that?
Well, science can't make claims about the metaphysical. Like science can't tell you if there are or not ghosts.
No.
It can only test whether or not there are or not ghosts here,
but
right?
It can't
but it's not going to make ought claims, right? It's not going to make any. It just doesn't test for that. So,
right.
If I wanted, so if you're doing a scientific experiment, it's got to be falsifiable, right? That's what makes it. So, the thing is we're going to start with an observation. In this case, you're going to observe. You think there's a ghost. Let's say you think there's one, right? So then your hypothesis is like, I don't know, there's an ethereal realm and this person hasn't passed on yet, right? Something like this. And then you're going to conduct an experiment. Let's say you go and you get equipment and you come up with electronic voice phenomenon, right? And you're trying to catch the spirit's voice on that or some shit, right? So you can even say like ghost hunting could be a rigorous scientific endeavor. It doesn't sound like one though, does it? You know what I mean? It's not really designed to answer those kinds of questions. That's not what it's there to do.
I just mean in terms of like, it says the Earth was created 6,500 years ago or something.
Well, that's young Earth creationism, but
Isn't that part of?
the thing is like there are people who fight over young Earth or old Earth
Okay.
creation. I've always considered it to be a silly fight to have because it really has nothing to do with the point. So the Bible warns us not to adhere to endless genealogies so that we don't get bogged down in nonsensical questions like that, right? It's just not that important from the Christian purview whether the Earth is 6,000 years old or not.
Well, maybe not, but the point is that it is older than 6,000 years. So
Right.
there is really no argument when it comes to that, which is just one example of something in the Bible that, I mean, when they wrote it, they had no understanding of like geophysical sciences. So they,
Well, they understood a lot more than people think. Like, I hear people say they didn't really understand things very well, but and one of the things I hear all the time is like, well, they didn't understand where babies came from. It's like, but the whole Old Testament is filled with his seed will go
Right.
into her. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I think they kind of got where babies came from.
but what about like when they said that plant life was made before the sun? That was before we had an understanding
You
of
mean in Genesis?
of photosynthesis.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact verbiage is in Genesis for which in the creation story which thing came first.
Is plant life and then sun.
Okay, sure. I mean, I don't know if that's the case. I'd have to pull up Genesis in
Okay.
order for me to contextualize it. But I'm just saying that, again, these seem like the least important questions. Like, let's even say that the accounting of that was incorrect or just an allegory or something like that. I don't believe it was. I think it's both actually true and it's allegorically true. And it is also trying to convey like various lessons and this kind of thing, right?
Right.
But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that that was not actually the case. How does that really contradict with Christian ethics ultimately?
I don't think it contradicts the ethics, but I think that it makes the Bible like illogical. Like it makes it not as I wouldn't trust it for anything. I mean, more morality wise, I think that it had some good ideas. Maybe the new one.
Yeah, but when people are making moral claims about religion, they're not referencing whether or not you think it's logical what happened in Genesis or the parting of the sea or things like that. They're not. It's not really what it's testing for when it comes to Christian ethics, and Christians are making moral claims, right?
Then what is it testing for?
Well, Christians are taking the virtues and the teachings of Jesus Christ, and what they're doing is they're taking these concepts and combining them into an ethical system called Christian ethics.
Okay.
And they're making ought prescriptions on that.
Right.
So even my argument would just always be, because I'm not a Christian apologist, there's people way better at that than me for the accounting stories and things like that. But my argument is always just like, even if morality is subjective, Christian ethics clearly has a ton of value. Even
Right.
to consequentialists, it seems to have a ton of value. So even if it is the case that Christians were delusional, like you said, it seems like you would want them to be, because they're super charitable, super charitable, and
I
they
don't
keep.
think they're bad.
Yeah, exactly, and they
people.
keep
That's not what I
society. They
meant.
keep society rolling, right? So even if it was the case that you thought they were living in a delusion, like who cares? From your view, it's like they should probably live in that delusion. It's probably better that they live in that delusion.
See, I think that religion can be really good for people, give them a sense of purpose. But I think that something I've said before is that I think it's like a betrayal of intellect to not let yourself question the how or the why of the creation of the universe.
Yeah, but I mean, in the skeptic tradition, you should be questioning skepticism too, and the fact that you can't give an accounting for any of the things that you actually care about, like justice. justice is your preference, right? The idea of justice is your preference. The idea of fairness is your preference. The idea of basically everything is your preference. Shouldn't you be skeptical of that too?
I don't think you answered my question.
What's the question?
What was my question? What did I say?
I don't know.
Oh.
I didn't. I'm not trying to deflect from any questions.
No, I lost it.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm just saying that I think ultimately, even from the viewpoint of the secularist or the subjective atheist or whatever, the secular humanist, that the most amount of value that people get is from Christianity anyway.
Right.
Because they can give you objective, unchanging accountings of things, and you basically necessarily say things need to change.